In today's episode of Today in World War II, January 8th, the British government introduces food rationing on the home front. RAF bombers from Malta badly damage an Italian battleship. Japanese troops are moving ever closer to Singapore city itself. And North Africa, the Axis powers have to suspend all convoys to Rommel due to heavy losses. And finally, one of the Soviet Union's most famous female snipers, although wounded, gets back to the German killing business. And brother, business is good. Let's get started. Okay, so on January 8th, 1940, the British government, first time in the war, introduced rationing for butter, bacon, ham, and sugar. And I wonder why they didn't introduce rationing for Brussels sprouts, which was at the time the crown jewel of British culinary delights. And I say that with a little bit of sarcasm, actually a lot of sarcasm, because whew, the Brits and their Brussels sprouts, I just don't get it. Okay, look, I make no claim about the United States being a culinary um, capital or a culinary center, right? I mean, they have Brussels sprouts, we have processed food, fast food, all that kind of stuff. So look, I'm not throwing stones here. Well, I actually am throwing a little bit of the stones because it's fun. Because I mean, that's what we do. We make fun of British food. But look, under the circumstances, all right, I know that it got very tight for them. They're being surrounded by U-boats, until 1943, mid-year 1943. The device was tightening with every merchant ship that was sunk. Not making light of that. I'm just making light of the fact that, you know, I don't like Brussels sprouts. Okay. But anyway, it just goes to show you that, things got really tight. And actually, little known fact, don't think that when the war ended, that all of a sudden things got better. They were still rationing years after the war ended. That's how bad things were. So in reality, it was much worse than what I'm making light of that. And I apologize for that. Sorry, Brits. My bad. Okay. But you should not apologize for your loyalty and uh, clicking that subscribe now button and the little bell that will notify you when the videos drop, because I know you want to get this content every day. Why you make it easy on yourself? YouTube will just notify you. Click on it and you can watch it whenever it's convenient for you. Okay. On January 8th, 1941, the British Wellington bombers from Malta. Wow, see, Malta, if there's one thing I want you to learn from this video series is how important Malta was in early in the war. Okay, in this case, Wellington bombers from Malta attacked two Italian battleships. They were moored in Naples. The Giulio Cesare and Vittorio Benedetto. Boy, you know what? You should shoot me for that Italian accent. It's just terrible. Anyway, now they did not sink them, and they did not hit them, but they were badly damaged by near misses. Remember, you didn't have to hit a surface vessel directly to cause it uh, to suffer really bad damage. The bombs that would barely miss but would go off under the water line could cause a lot of damage. In this case, it did. So the Giulio Cesare battleship was heavily damaged by three near misses. I just want to once again remind all you guys that if you decide to do a deeper dive into the Mediterranean campaign, naval campaigns, boy, the Brits they were like a bulldog. They just continued to attack, 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 attack. And the Italians just didn't have the means I mean, they tried. Hey, listen, the Italian Navy was very brave. Those sailors were very brave. I mean, look what happened with their frogmen going in and destroying two battleships, in Alexandria Harbor. So it's not a question of bravery. They just weren't as professional and well trained, and didn't have that, I don't know, tenacity or fighting spirit that the British naval surface navy did, and they ended up losing because of that. So that's important to remember. Okay, so what's also important to remember is that you like this video and leave a comment. I'm just going to say one word for you, algorithm. Algorithm will show my video to or my content to more people if you engage by liking and leaving a comment. So please do. I would appreciate it. On January 8th, 1942, oof, the Japanese troops were getting closer and closer to Singapore. Remember, they didn't land on Singapore proper, which is at the bottom of the Malay Peninsula. They landed close, farther north, and the Brits believed that the jungle was impenetrable and that no army could successfully drive through the jungle to take Singapore from the back end. Well, that's what happened. This is what was happening right now. And so the Japanese were able to penetrate the outer lines near Kuala Lumpur, which is the capital right now of modern day Malaysia. And this this particular attack got them about 15 miles north of Kuala Lumpur. The Australian 8th Division was sent to take over the positions of the Indian 11th Division that was pretty much almost wiped out. So things were not looking good for the Brits and the Commonwealth soldiers there. And boy, I don't envy what was awaiting them. Spoiler alert, Singapore did fall and they became prisoners. Okay, so on January 8th, 1943, the Axis convoys from Italy to Tripoli in Libya were suspended. Why? Because they were getting sunk. And in this case, the last two, the last, I guess, the straw that broke Rommel's camel back when it came to convoys coming to supply his Africa Corps troops and tanks was the fact that a British force of two cruisers and four destroyers they sorted out to attack a convoy coming to supply Rommel, and they sank 14 merchant vessels. Can you imagine the amount of cargo and aviation fuel and shells and troops that were destroyed in 14 merchant vessels? So you can understand this hopefully will help you understand better why they were not able to win the North African campaign. And it was all because of supply and logistics. And the British did a much better job of interdiction than the Germans did. And just going to reiterate here, Malta was the key. Okay. And then finally, on January 8th, 1944, one of the most famous Soviet female fighters of the war, her name was Roza Shanina. She was very famous. Unfortunately, she did not survive the war, but against orders, she kept a diary. And after the war, her diary was discovered and was published, and that made her even more famous post-war when she was already deceased. But she had been wounded in a previous battle recently, but she petitioned the Soviet army to allow her to go back to the front lines, and they did. And even though she was wounded, she had her favorite weapon, the her sniper rifle, and she went back to killing Germans. And boy, I'll tell you what, those Russian Soviet fighters were pretty darn good. Um, right up there. I mean, the American Army, did not have a very good attitude towards snipers in World War II. Post World War II, they realized that they were leaving a very powerful weapon on the table, and so now our snipers are really really good. Uh, in World War II, not so much, but the Soviets recognized that, and so some of their most famous stars, if you want to call it that, figures of World War II were the snipers. So you can research that if you want. It's very, very interesting reading, especially the female snipers. So that's it for today, January 8th. I'm glad you were here for this journey. Can't wait to get you another video tomorrow. Thanks a lot.